Hi everyone. Today is September the 6th. I can never remember the day. It's a Friday, and this is the Moneyball Morning Report for the Benzinga Pro platform. We have jobs numbers coming out, the employment situation. We're going to carve through that a little bit. And then we've got two Fed speakers in the morning right after those numbers. So it could be that we've got ourselves a little bit more noisy action, but have a look at this. Every single bounce is getting sold. And not only did we dip down past the point of control, we now broke underneath the VWAP. Now, what normally happens when we break a point of control and a VWAP is that we retest it. So 4 days ago, we first tested that point of control, bounced, and then held above it, bounced, and then held below it. So you can see this kind of noise here. I anticipate the same sort of thing here. Large wicks, but bounces are still sell zones. Where are we likely to come into? This level here at 54.71 is potentially that line in the sand that says, listen, if we bounce up here and then we hold this 54.71 one-ish area, we could have ourselves a move back up into the point of control and some more noisy action as we rebuild. As I mentioned so many times that I'm almost sick of mentioning, I believe that this is what we're into. Now, this is a very big downward week. And what we have noticed about big downward weeks, they do have a tendency to put some reversal legs on them. And let me delete all of the drawings. All right. So here we are taking a look at this from a week. We're going to close another week. It's the first week of the month, and September is noisy. Not necessarily down all the time, but very noisy. And so we clearly have a couple of lines in the sand from a weekly perspective. 55. So why is it not snapping to the grid? I say 55.84, thereabouts, and we are breaking through this 54.95 that we've held. So if indeed we hold this 54.70 in the trading day, then the bounce action ought to give us the recapture of the big fat round number of 5,500. All right? So I think these weekly lines become very important in the grand scheme of things. So very, very important. Listen, if the jobs number is bad, the market is going to first see it as good news and potentially spike, but then settling in, they'll see that it's really not good news and the market will fade. So hopefully sensibilities hit people as they realize that interest rates simply cannot come in at this time in the way that they want them to come in. They just aren't. Anyways, this is my supposition, of course. So what are we looking at? A flat 30. Now the flat 30 has been flat-ish from this move down to this move up to this move down, which means literally we could slip all the way into the value area low around 53.95, 5,400, and we would still be in trend, a flat trend where we would have the bounce. So jobs numbers going to give us a big wick in one direction or another, and then my suspicion is a continuation down. However, the low here today is very critical. The pre-market low, it's a super important level. Let me squeak on over to TradingView for, well, that's not it, for a quick sec. And you can see that from the ES perspective and the NQ perspective, there's a fair bit of option control sitting on the edge of these charts. And of course, this data comes from Mentor Q, which gives me the gamma flow, and of course Edgeful, which maps out my trades, my formations for the spreads. But that's what we're looking at right there. Bounces are sell zones. If we begin to hold a retest of this 5470, we could have ourselves a really solid bounce up through the point of control, because these areas tend to make very sticky, wicky chart formations. All right? So be warned. Tough trading day ahead. Okay, next thing, let's take a look at the cues from a weekly perspective. Savage week, just like all the others. I'm going to move this one way down here because we really don't need it at this juncture. If we take a look at what is mattering on the week, you can see this is the region we are trying to completely retrace. At the very bottom of it, we should find buyers. So here's the storyboard. If we cannot get above 18,863, it is very likely that we will collapse another 500 points to 18,390 with a little bit of a stopping space at 18,593. All right, if we do hold the bounce, look, testing the 30, buyers are going to come in here. But this is a long-term formation. And so what happens at these long-term formations is they get very noisy. Up, down, up, down, up, down. And the downs can be savage, but the trend is still saying, hey, listen, if I get a savage dip around this line, I should buy it. Okay, so there's definitely an opportunity for buying the dip here. You just have got to be really cautious about it and wait for the clean setup and the structure that says go for it. And so what does that look like? Listen, you stop heading lower, you bounce, and then you pull back and hold a higher low. Now, is it always a nice idea for you to bounce through and break resistance? Yes. But sometimes you just bounce and then pull back for a higher low, and there's resistance ahead in the trend, and that's really what's happening here, and they just move straight out. This is the action event that says go for it, and Investors Business Daily has got a new power trend, and so they are saying the dips are still buys, and that is fairly important because they're not looking at the big picture of other things. They're looking at pure power in the trend, and it's saying the dips are bringing buyers. And so I will not disagree with that. I agree, just the dips are a little fierce, and so it's important to consider that. Again, 593, 863, 19,138. Okay, from a daily perspective, here we are at the value area low. Look, somebody just tried to buy right off of it, a bunch of folks. So we've got to pay attention to that line, right? Yeah, we got to pay attention to that line. If it holds, we have to get up over the low of the prior days. If we can't, our goose is cooked, right? If we can, we begin to walk up the wall of worry. Yesterday's VWAP action is 18,973, right? That's all we've got looking at that space. Let's take a look at the YM. Also coming into a support zone on the daily. Let's see what the week looks like. Oh, nowhere near any kind of relative support other than, a trend line that's sitting in the midst of a channel. And so that easily could be what we are looking at. What does the market normally do? Normally buys after big dips, right? So we could see some pretty sideways action. Old resistance, 14,176. That's going to be new ideal support. But look at how far away we are from the point of control, which is down here, 38,790, and the VWAP, which is 37,881. So reversion to the mean is very likely here, right? And so still dips are buy zones, but this is on a weekly formation and the dip just started. And so, you could easily say, listen, if I can get up and over, if I close the week above 40,831, then Monday morning when I come in, I should be able to buy. If I do not, then Monday morning when I come in, I'm going to look for a bounce to sell. Okay? Pay attention to that. That's supremely important. Let's move all of the annotations from the daily chart, and we can see that we are building sideways pressure here, but lower highs and lower lows. So we are collapsing into these regions, and that is why I suspect that that 40,830, I can't even remember the number that I just said, but it seems like it's around this area, 40,875. Next week when it comes in, if we close below there next week, the bounce is going to be sell zones from the formation. Very simply, bounces are going to be sell zones. Bounces are sell zones right now, but we're coming into value area high and we're going to have buyers there. So watch for sticky mess. And when the jobs number comes out at 8:30, just be very careful. I would not have anything sitting in the charts unless it's way high or way low. And then you've got yourself a sweet spot, right? What's way low? 537, 540 in the SPY, right? Take a look at the weekly formation. Same sort of thing. It looks a lot more like the YM than it does the ES, which I find to be very interesting. I'm going to put up the gamma flows for this one from Mentor Q and see what we can do with that. Okay, so what are we looking for? SPY, it's sitting at the 14. Relative noise, but still, if I have a failure to head higher, a lower high, and a lower low, my bounces are not going to hold higher. So the short action is still way up at the top here at 560, and the long action, holy smokes, it could be all the way down at 530 if we're looking at these weekly formations. Intraday, we've got ourselves bounces that give us sell zones, and those bounces could be all the way up at 554. Be careful. Today we've got our Zoom meeting for the Benzinga Pro members. We had a fantastic butterfly trade in Broadcom. Man, that's going to pay off sweet. We've had a number of very beautiful trades lately that are doing very, very well for us. So that being said, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about setting up some new trades. And you know, if you want to do something here in the Qs, or the ES, or SPY, we could talk about it. Certainly setting up some plays for big movements, but I do see a lot of sideways noise, and you know that means a lot of trade management. And if you're okay with that, then that's fine. All right, what are we looking for here? Baseline 451. I do expect us to come into that number. Could make a nice bounce zone, and we could also bounce into 470 simply because that's a low volume node, right? Low volume node's superb for giving us areas where price action will respond dramatically. You can see in this low volume node, it snapped right back up into the high volume node. And now we're going down again. The next low volume node is down here at value area low at 435. Do I think we're getting there? Yeah, I do. I think we'll eventually get there. I just don't think it's going to go in a straight line. The markets are very messy. All right, take care, folks, and I'll see you on the platforms.